Hello, you awesome friends. This is your pal Edwards here speaking with one of my wonderful friends and the great people I work with in our glorious city of Sydney in Australia. Matt Koopmans, how are you going today, Matt?
And good day, everyone. I'm doing exceptionally well. I mean, the whole lockdown, etc. It's for me working from home. It's almost business as usual. I just wish it were a little bit different situation, but we're doing great.
Oh, Matt, it's a pleasure. I just want to say thank you for your time. And for those that may already know Matt or may not Matt, Matt's actually one of Australia's and the world's leading business applications and IT experts. He's got clients all over the world, ranging from the UK to Paris to the Middle East, America, and more. And he is based in Sydney, Australia, probably about, what is it, 15 kilometers or 10 miles from where we live, something like that.
If you do distance 15 kilometers or 10 miles, if you do it in normal traffic, which we don't have these days, it's about an hour and a half.
Yeah. And look, I just want to say it's an absolute honor to have you with us, Matt. And for the sake of the audience, Matt, can you tell us a little bit about what you do and how you add value to people's lives?
All right, well, a little bit of my history. I've been in business applications for over 25 years. Hit that age where it's going to be 25 years, no matter when you ask me. 10 years from now, it will still be 25 years. So let's keep that in mind. Worked for companies like HP and Microsoft. Been in the Microsoft ecosystem for a very long time as well. And in 2017, had a great opportunity to start for myself, and I ended up doing a complete different technology, Zoho, which is more aimed to the small to medium-sized businesses. That said, their largest customers got 29,000 users on the platform, so it scales up very well. But what for me was very important is that it scales down. A lot of the applications that we buy, if you're a solopreneur or you have a business with 20 people, or 30 or 40 or 50, it is actually too complex. And what really attracted me to these suite of business applications is that they simplified it so much without losing the strength of the application. So you can get the same things done without having the headaches of the complexity, the maintenance, and the implementation costs.
I love it. I think that's very well said. And you're working for HP, Microsoft, and Zoho. I mean, Zoho is an incredible platform. And in fact, diving right into the detail, I originally invited you to do this interview over Zoom.
Yes.
And you said, Edward, we need to talk. And we're actually doing this interview. Is it called what, Zoho? What's it called? We're using Zoho right now to do this interview, aren't we?
This is Zoho Meeting. And frankly, I don't really mind what platform we're using. So yeah, obviously I drink my own champagne. I think everybody should do that, right? If you're worth your salt, you use the stuff that you sell. That said, you can do interviews over Jitsi, you can use Skype meetings, you can use Teams. It doesn't matter. I do have an issue with Zoom, and that is not for the superficial security flaws that like people do Zoom bombings. That's just password settings. The real issue is apparently they route their traffic through their server that is behind the Great Firewall of China. Now, again, nothing against the beautiful country of China. I do have something of an issue with the privacy laws over there. Whatever is routed to a server in China needs to be, by law, made available to the Communist Party of China. And as you may or may not know, they have done significant investment in AI, in surveillance. They have, camera systems in one state now that they're going to roll out everywhere that does facial recognition real time. So they have the means and capability to analyze mass video streams that go through the server in China. Now, in essence, you go like, it's all end-to-end encrypted. That apparently is also not entirely true because the encryption keys are also issued by the server in China. So for me, it's like, I don't care where it is. If the server was in the US, did the same thing, I probably also wouldn't be using it. But I'm a little bit more concerned right now with the regime that does use mass surveillance on that scale. I don't think we should be promoting that. As much as I love Zoom for the capabilities and the ease of use, it's fantastic, but there is a significant trade-off in the cost of privacy. You may say, well, we don't really matter. As soon as someone says, I don't care about my privacy because it doesn't matter, is like saying, I don't care about free speech, I've got nothing to say, right? We all have, a fundamental right to, this is our stuff, don't be using it. And we don't know what's happening at the other end of the firewall. So the great Chinese firewall works in two ways, right? It works to filter the internet in China so that the population cannot see things that are deemed counterproductive to the social harmony of China. And then you may say, who decides that? Well, that's obviously the government. The other side of the firewall is kind of like a smoke screen. We don't know what happens in there with our data. Once it's there, and we don't know. So I don't think, personally, I'm not fearful. I don't wear a tinfoil hat yet. I may actually make one. But it's more like, should we enable this in grand scale? Like if you have 300 million users per month, with all that data, what can you do with that? Actually, a lot more than people think. Metadata also matters. So it's that's why I'm saying you need to be very careful what you use. No. Free comes at a cost. It's not always money.
Wow, that's incredible, because it's on that note, actually, I understand that quite a few larger that explains a lot. I didn't understand that, because my understanding is, well, quite a few larger companies have also ban the use of Zoom for that. Is that the reason why they're banning the use of Zoom?
Well, imagine this, right? So let's say it's Elon Musk and SpaceX, and we're no longer using Zoom. Google is no longer using Zoom. Let's say you have a company meeting with your R&D team over Zoom, and you can share your screen with the technical drawings and talk around technical issues. That security key is in that server. We don't know if it's recorded, but why wouldn't they? There's no way to tell, right? That information is by law needs to be made available to the government of China. So yes, there is a significant concern.
Wow, that's a really, really good thing to know, and I've got to say that is absolutely amazing. So good to know, because I guess that's why you're on the case, because again, bring it back to people generally, that's why security is such an important thing, because again, if you don't control your data, anything can go wrong.
Your data is you, basically, and you are your data. That's how people think about you, right? So if you look at employers that potentially go through your Twitter profile, and if you made a tweet like 10 years ago and they may not entirely agree with it, you don't get the job. Those are really nasty stories, but that's just the society as it is at the moment. That will change. But the data also tells something really powerful about you, about your habits, about where you spend your money, about what you do. Like, for instance, Facebook gets a lot of data, right? They gather a lot of data. That data is aggregated. And even if you don't have a Facebook account, you may be in a phone contact with someone that is on Facebook, etc. And they have the ability to link your credit card details and what you purchase. There's a lot of data that is in those platforms that we don't know. It's just convenient. It's fun, right? But and it's fine if you understand this and you say, you know what, I really don't care. That's your freedom. That's your choice. Mm-hmm. And I believe that we should retain that choice, right? That's a trade-off. But a lot of people don't know, and then they complain like, oh, why is my data here? Why do I get this? Why do I get that? Well, that's the trade-off what you've done when using those platforms. And that should be more open, I think.
And I suppose as well, in defense of the platforms, they tell you that, like, when you accept terms and conditions, it's all in there, isn't it?
Yes. And there's, let me see, on the 6 billion people in the world, and let's say how many have an internet connection, like 3.5 billion, maybe 5 people read that. No one reads these things, and they are designed for you not to read them. Right? It's if I'm going to write terms and conditions that I don't want you to read, I'm going to write it in such a text that everything is there and legally I am covered. But psychologically, you go like, I'm not going to read that stuff. That's fine. It's just too hard, right? So for me, the terms and conditions, there is a very famous grammar checker platform. If you read those terms and conditions, you go like, well, everything you put in there for them to check is now theirs. That's
wow,
right? There's an online presentation creation tool, which is fantastic. Again, you give away the ownership. Now, imagine you work for a company and you have an NDA, which is a non-disclosure agreement with one of your customers. So that means whatever information they provide you, you have a care of duty that you can't disclose that. Using those platforms, you actually are in breach of the non-disclosure, right? So you need to be very careful. You should read those terms and conditions. And if they're written in a way that you go, this is too boring to read or it's too hard to understand, there usually is a reason for that.
So on that note, just thinking about, like, for example, I use Microsoft technology, right? I'm a full 365 user and everything.
Yeah.
And my understanding is that Microsoft has some of the most secure technology on the planet. Is that a fair thing to say? Would you agree with that view?
They do have very secure data centers. That's true. They also are a big target because they're a big name. The challenge is the endpoints at Microsoft, right? And we all know, how many viruses and malwares are there for Windows, and that goes into the millions of new ones every month. It's just crazy, right?
Wow.
And that has to do with the security architecture of the endpoint. So you need to make sure you got a very, very good antivirus, and that's not the one that comes with the software. I'm afraid that still doesn't pick up everything. So yes, there is risk with that. Now, Apple starts seeing more of that as well because it's more, it gets more market share and for you more loved, right? Because in the end, the marketing technology, the marketing principle of spamming and malware is spray and pray, right? You just spray out your email to as many users as you can, and you pray that a significant portion of those will hit yes. I will click this because I don't know what I'm doing. Right? Even if 98% of people don't do it, still you have 2%. So 2% of a million emails is a good return.
Wow.
Right? So that's number one, right? So it's Microsoft is widely used, therefore it's a big target. You get more return. The second thing is the way it's architected, etc. It has there's a long history for compatibility. The whole security premise is different. Apple is slightly better because they've re-architected macOS into the OS X, which is based on FreeBSD, which is based on a Unix derivative. So the whole security premise is different. Linux, in the server, there's a lot of attacks on Linux servers because they still own a lot of the server market, right? They're very, very big. I mean, even Azure is running Linux servers, right? It's huge. But the desktop, I think there are about 60 viruses that attack the desktop. So it's basically I run an antivirus to protect my friends that use Windows.
Gotcha. So again, for the obviously, I mean, you've blown my mind today because again, I had no idea about everything. That's why we're talking to you. You're amazing. And I guess so for the average user, right? The average business application user, like small medium business, is that why, for example, you use Windows 10, like you would use Windows 10, you have a good antivirus. Zoho has really good security, that sort of thing. What's your thinking about the average user like myself and anyone watching?
So for the average user, most users, I wouldn't recommend moving to Linux because it's not the same as Windows. That's number one. It's not the same, right? Now, can you do everything you can do with Windows? Yes, you can, right? But it is different. If you're using Windows or anything actually, you need to keep in mind, like, how am I securing my files? So ransomware, that is the latest craze in the malware thing, is ransomware. So what it is, you click on the link, it encrypts your files, you get a little pop-up message like, donate $2,500 or whatever it is to this Bitcoin wallet to get your files back. So, that's ransomware. It's very profitable. And they attack, governments, hospitals, you name it, right? It's just terrible stuff. Why are those files encrypted? Well, because you can't access your files, and your files is your business, right? Especially if you have everything stored in your local server. Do you have a backup? What's your backup strategy? Is your backup disconnected when you're actually doing your normal operations? So in other words, once my backup file is connected, that has a potential to be infected as well. Right, so if I say, I take daily backups, I put another copy on this part here, and it is connected to your server, and the server is infected, or that PC is infected, there goes your backup. It's encrypted as well, so that's useless. So you do need to disconnect your backups. You need to make sure that if you don't use secure cloud storage, that you keep your backups disconnected from your system. Right? Because otherwise it makes no sense. They get affected as well. If you are using secure cloud storage, you need to ensure that it has version history. and it has actually some sort of protection against malware that's saying, hey, you can always roll back to the version, but you cannot overwrite those versions, right? So in other words, that the encryption key runs in, it does your current files, and you have them local on your PC. That then gets synchronized to the cloud, that the cloud then says, hey, here's a new version, I keep the old version, right? And if you keep the old version, you can always roll back. Now, if you don't have that enabled, then you have a problem. The other thing you can do is, okay, which files are super sensitive? I don't need them daily. Do you need them on your PC? Or do you need them only on the cloud storage so that there actually is no hard drive direct access to those files? That means if the malware runs on your PC, it doesn't access the files in the cloud because there's not a direct connection to them, right? So it's all a little bit of security thinking. The other thing is, a lot of people, they put all their files on their laptop, which is great because it's a portable computer. We take it with us. Although today with COVID-19, actually the whole laptop market is like, well, it actually becomes a desktop, right? It's having it on a fixed location, and that's it. But when you travel, let's say you forget your laptop in the airplane. That's okay. You can't log in my Windows or whatever operating system I use because I have a password. But if you don't encrypt your drive, I can boot up from any, maybe a Linux operating system from a little data key thumb drive, and boot up and access all your files. So you do need to think, like, if you bring your laptop often on travel, or actually I say if you have customer documents on your laptop and you bring your laptop outside and you can forget it somewhere, it is good practice to have your drive encrypted. So even if they boot up with a separate, a rescue disk or whatever it is, they can't access your drive. It's encrypted.
Wow, that's incredible. And while I've got you on this topic, this has happened to a few friends of mine, and I know I'm saying this word is going to, these two words will make you angry, but public Wi-Fi. Can you tell us about public Wi-Fi?
Public Wi-Fi is so great. It's another free thing. We all love public Wi-Fi, especially when you're traveling abroad. It is incredibly easy for someone who is a little bit a hacker, not much, right, to create a new hotspot that is slightly stronger than the public Wi-Fi hotspot and has exactly the same name, so your phone and whatever doesn't know that you're in the hacker's hotspot. And what they do is they route all the traffic through their server or little app, and they can do it on a Raspberry Pi. So it's not that they have to bring a big computer. Raspberry Pi can be a computer this size, right?
Wow.
And you log on to the public Wi-Fi. Fantastic. You think, great, I'm going into Facebook. Fantastic, great. You enter your password. That password is now with that person. They have your Facebook account. Now, what is linked to your Facebook account? A lot of other things. Let's say you do banking. Never do banking on a public Wi-Fi. So if you use public Wi-Fi, if you really have to use it, the one thing I can recommend is get yourself a VPN. Not the free ones, because guess what? We don't know, right, what they're doing with data. VPNs cost money, right? They need to hold a service. It stands for Virtual Private Network, and what it does, it encrypts your traffic between your phone to the VPN server, and then the VPN server says, okay, now I'm going to whatever I'm going to. So if they spoof your Wi-Fi, they actually don't know what you're doing on it. But if you use a free VPN, all right, so how are they getting their money? Because they have to have a server. There's a lot of traffic through it. So what do they hold? Well, some of them may be very benevolent, but I would say, okay, what's the business model? So if you use a lot of public Wi-Fi, get yourself a VPN.
Yeah. And what VPN company do you use and recommend?
There's so many out there. There's private internet access. There's so many of them. Just look in the reviews. What is important is that they don't log the data if you're really privacy sensitive. For me, it's more like if I'm on a public Wi-Fi, because sometimes I have to be, is that I protect the data that I'm transmitting, right? So I really don't care much about logging. For me, it's more about protect the data that I'm transmitting, because it could be my customers' data, it could be my banking data. If I'm just checking checking my bank accounts, if someone has paid me, and I'm using a public Wi-Fi, which by the way you should never do for your bank account, ever. But then you can use a VPN. It doesn't matter which one it is, as long as it's not something that you go like, well, I don't understand their business model. They're giving me something for free. So other than money, how am I paying them?
Wow. Brilliant, Matt. I'm going to say you've blown my mind in talking like security and protecting what we have. I was going to say, as we bring this incredible interview to its epic conclusion, what's your top advice for us awesome business people and entrepreneurs around the world? What's the top advice from Matt Koopmans?
All right, so I think the key thing right now is the situation that we're all in, and we're hopefully seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, which means we're still in the tunnel, right? Is the world is not going to be the same as it was before. And when we're working from home, what you will see is that some people are equally, if not more productive at home than they were in the office. There will be a significant portion of people that actually may want to continue working from home. And as from an office perspective, that means you need less real estate. The other thing that we need to look at is, okay, there's a lot of people, unfortunately, that have lost their jobs, their incomes, right? We will see a surge of new entrepreneurs coming to the market because not everybody is going to be hired back. Especially if you look at in Australia, with the award structures that we have, it is for an employer, it's a major decision to hire people. It's not easy, right? It is not the most easy country to hire personnel. Actually, it's almost a disincentive to hire people. So complex it is. So what you'll see is a lot of companies will go like, is this core to my service? Do I want to hire people or do I want to partner with people that used to work for me and now I hire them as contractors or a fixed amount of time? I give them some security. But I think the whole model will change. So from a business perspective, whether you're a small business or a large business, you need to make sure that your business is independent of your location, is independent of your device that you currently are using, and that you can securely connect with your clients, with your vendors, with your banks, no matter what device you use. So that you really think about, okay, what is the connection and what is the device? Those two things should be separated. And from a business perspective, it means like if you still have your service in-house and you use an old VPN, which is a private VPN, right? So you have a VPN server, a virtual private network server in your business. You need to log in. You have a little dongle and it gives you a number. Those things are actually not secure at all. They've been known to have many flaws, right? If that's the way your workers connect to your business right now, and a lot of those businesses see that there's an influx of those users and then the servers get, they lose their bandwidth. And what happens is that the help desk is overwhelmed with the number of support calls, so you lose productivity. So take away the weakest point in your digital supply chain. And we talk about supply chains all the time right now. Is our physical supply chains has got a single point of failure. Look at your digital supply chain. How do people connect to what they need to do? Is there a single point of failure? And usually people that are not in the cloud, they have those single points of failure.
Wow. I think it's beautifully well said. And Matt, this is incredible. I gotta say, I love where you've gone. What are some of your closing thoughts for our wonderful viewers and attractive viewers around the world?
Closing thoughts are, we will get through whatever we're going through right now, right? We also get to decide, and we should take that decision very, very seriously on what the world will look like after this. It will not be the same. If you think like everything after the COVID and then we go back to normal, I don't think that will happen. But as citizens, as business owners, as people, we do have a say in what it's going to be, right? So if you need to be very careful on what you give away right now to get through it. We need to do the right thing, but you have to be careful. Like, okay, what happens after what we go through? So some countries are considering, why don't we just have a mobile app installed on everybody's mobile phone so we can track them? And that will help with the current crisis, and it will help with the current crisis. But once you give away that, it's very easy to get that right back, right? I mean, so we need to be very clear as citizens, like what do we accept and for how long? We all need to do our part. The other thing is, once we get out of it, is like, okay, the market is going to change. If you've lost your job in this crisis, think very carefully, okay, do I need to be employed by a company to do what I do, or can I rent out these services? If you can rent out these services, it actually can pay you more and more secure because you have more than one employer, right? So that you don't put all your eggs in one basket. So think about this. If you work for a company, you've got one customer. If you work for yourself and you have multiple customers, then one of them, two of them, three of them may go, but you still have some of them left. So from a personal risk mitigation, the whole way that we work may change. So think about, how do you manage your own risk?
Oh, Matt, beautifully said. And Matt, I'm sure anyone watching is loving this. Matt, how can people get in contact with you?
All right, so that's actually very simple. I'm on LinkedIn. And we all love LinkedIn.
We love it.
Right?
And we love Microsoft. LinkedIn and Microsoft are awesome.
Fantastic.
So
search Matt Koopmans on LinkedIn. I'm here in Sydney. There's only one Matt Koopmans in Sydney. There are a few of us in LinkedIn, by the way. The name is a lot more common than I thought it was. But I'm in Sydney, the only Matt Koopmans in Sydney. So connect with me there. You can go to my website, which is www.aurelian. That's Aurelian. It's like the emperor in Rome, Aurelian, -group.com. It's a bit more complex, so only smart people will access the website, and those are my customers.
Oh, I love it. And also, too, as well, just for the sake of the audience, you come from a Dutch background. Is that right?
Yes, I'm born in the Netherlands. I've been living overseas. I've lived in Saudi Arabia. I've lived in Eastern Europe for a little bit. Been in New Zealand, United States of America, and now in Australia. But yes, I'm born and bred Dutch.
And very good. And one of my favourite actors is a certain Dutch actor. Who's that Dutch actor I always talk to you about?
That would be Rutger Hauer. May he rest in peace. And awesome actor, did some really fantastic movies. Obviously, if those people that don't know Rutger Hauer, was very famous from Blade Runner, the first one, as the main antagonist, or actually probably the hero of the story, if you really go into the depth of the stories. Also, very well known, Flesh and Blood, Lady Hawk, and this is actually a very interesting one. This is a B movie. Another interpretation of Yojimbo, just like Fistful of Dollars and Last Man Standing, is Omega Doom, when then in the whole cyborg thing. Absolute B movie, but I can definitely recommend it if you like that type of movie.
So you highly recommend the Rutger Hauer film Omega Doom?
Rutger Hauer, in every sense, is just the star of the show.
Yeah, and what is one of the most favourite quotes of Rutger Hauer that you and I love?
That would be, "That's the spirit." And I think that's what we need during this whole crisis. Like, that's the spirit. Don't give up.
There we go. Well, on that note, that's the spirit. I'm going to say, Matt, thank you so much for everything. We absolutely appreciate you.
Edward, thank you so much for having me, and for everyone watching this, thank you for your time. Really look forward to connecting with you.